Alright, now before we jump into the actual looking at the SharePoint architecture, let's talk about and do a quick review of what the architecture is, and then we can actually go see it in the central administration. So now if we remember that the biggest level of execution in SharePoint is the application pool. This application pool is the actual worker process which executes the actual SharePoint code. Contained within the application pool, we have the web application, and then within the individual web application, we have site collections. And then contained within those, we have the individual webs and various pieces of content. So when we look at this in our SharePoint environment, we can simply log in you would log in with SPAdmin or whatever your default user is. And then we go to the SharePoint Central Administration page. I have pinned this to my Start menu, but by default, you will be able to access it by going into Start, All Programs, and Microsoft Office Server Central Administration. Now, this is just a website. You could also access it from the from the web browser by typing in the URL. The Central Administration is the overall control panel for SharePoint. This manages the farm and the server topologies. So as we talked about before, you can go in and you can actually see what the different roles of the servers are. In this case, I have a single server installation, and all of the different pieces of functionality are executing on this server. Now again, you can pull that out, and then through the Operations tab you can assign roles and manage the different pieces of the topology as well as functionality of the server. We will come back to this page later on as well to set up publishing and things like that. The tab that you will end up using the most is the Application Management tab. In this Application Management tab, this is where you actually create the different site collections, the different web applications, and get your content ready to go. After that, the administration of the content takes place from within the site collection. So to get started, I'm going to create a new web application. And to do that, we click on Create or Extend Web Application. And then we go ahead and say, I want to create a new web application. Now, the existing IIS website says, actually, I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to call this, let's call this port 3333. 5 threes. SharePoint 33333. And then what that will do is allow us to just identify and remember that if we go in and look at this through the IIS administration page. I'm going to leave all the default settings for the different security configurations. And then my load balanced URL tells me that, okay, I'm going to use this server as my load balancer. But that gets into how the different components can be accessed if this were installed on a large farm. Now additionally then, I can specify what application pool is this executing in. So like before, is this executing in the default one? Is it executing in another application pool? Where is the actual code going to be running? I'm going to create a new one and set it to run as a default service because that's how my installation is. However, you will want to log in with configuration and type whatever your domain is and a domain user to execute this as. So SPA pool is the one that I typically recommend using. And then you also want to create a new content database for this application pool or for this web application. And a good best practice is to always put the name of the application pool or the port of the application pool, so that we, or web application, I'm sorry, so that we know which content database is associated with which application. And we can just leave the standard default Windows authentication running. And then we click OK.